Hello, everyone. Please, if you are around and you can hear my voice, you can just let me know in the chat and then we can start. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Masanyo. I hope I got the name right. So we can begin. So for today, we will look at variables and then we will look at what we call data types. We will also look at user inputs, and then we will close the chapter with comments. But before I even proceed, let me address some issues. I wish I could show them, but as part of the registration for today, I put in an optional field where you can drop in some concerns about the previous meetings and what you want to see improved in today's meeting or the meetings that follow today. So anytime you fill that registration for the attendance, if you have anything in mind, you can put it in that particular space and then it will be treated with all the confidentiality it deserves. And someone raised the concern about uh, during the meeting that I should maybe put the WhatsApp group on hold so that people will not be sending plenty messages that will interrupt with any message that I send. That is if I read the meaning right. But the person who sent it, I'm sorry, I don't think that will be possible because even as we are having the stream, somebody might have a problem and post it on the WhatsApp page. And there are people there to address it. All of us there can address it. So I don't think that will be really possible. And if you think you will miss any important message, I usually pin the messages that I think you should easily find. So, for instance, the registration link for today was pinned. So, when you look at the top, you just tap on the pinned message and then you get access to it. One person also raised concern about the different time zone. Yes, I'm very much aware that people are joining this stream and the camp from all over the world with different time zones. So that is why it is also made available to watch after here on YouTube. So if you find it difficult to join the live sessions, that is not a problem. The only disadvantage is that you may not really get to ask your live questions. That is the only disadvantage. But after that, it will be made available on YouTube so you can watch afterward. But just make sure that you register for every day, even if you can't make it, because that is what is used for the attendance. Thank you very much. And one person also said, I nearly forgot that if I read it well, then the person was trying to say that my confidence level is low, or whether my voice, I don't know what the person was trying to convey in that whole message. But if my confidence is low, or whether my voice or my confidence, I am that kind of person who usually, or let me say regularly, speaks very fast. And if I do it that way, I don't really think a lot of people can absorb it. And so, as much as I try to follow my transcripts or what I have in mind, I also try not to sound very technical in some of the explanations. So, if you find out that I'm trying to pull some words and I struggle a little, that means that I don't want to bring in the most technical words for you to get confused. I just try to use very simple words for us all to understand it, not particularly in the programming perspective, but in that layman's understanding, so that we can later convey that understanding to more complex concepts. So, thank you. So, let us start with the first task for the day. That is, we will look at what variables are. So, what is a variable? You hear me so many times from now to tell you declare a variable, which means create a variable. And so, a variable, I would define it like a container that holds a value, like a number or a word. So, it's just like you have a container or a box in your house, you want to keep something in. We can say that the box is the variable and the content in the box is the value of the variable. In mathematical terms, it also implies. So if you are from a mathematics background, you know, in that case, we say x is a variable because the value changes. And then the 20 becomes the value of the variable x. So if I want to say declare a variable or store my favorite color in code, if I want to tell Python my favorite color, I can declare a variable called favorite color, which will have a value of blue. And so in that case, the favorite color becomes my variable, or more technically, the variable name. And then blue becomes the value, which is the value of the variable. So let us quickly jump into code and see what all of this mean. Today, I will use PyCharm, or let me say, I will start with PyCharm, but I will switch also to Visual Studio Code when it is necessary. I apologize for the breakages, should I say so, in yesterday, so updating itself. And so there were lots of conflicts with the stream, my camera, and all these things coming together, and the updates going on at the background. So today I've switched browser. I hope it goes very smooth without any breakages. So I have my Python open. I'll go ahead and then select my 21 days PyCharm, which is the project we created yesterday. Okay, so let me zoom in. This is the maximum font that it can show you. I just hope that you can see. So I'll go up where my 21 days PyCharm project folder is. I just right click on it. And then go to, and then I'll choose directory, which is the more technical word for So you can click on it, and then you can type in day 2. After day 2, click on it, or make sure right click on the day 2 folder. Okay, sorry, that is for PyCharm. Select the day 2 folder and just click on the new file here. So it will create a file. You can see that the file is inside the folder because the folder's icon is far to the left than the file's icon. So I can create my Python file, which I can also call day 2. But I told you that in Visual Studio Code, you have to intentionally put the py there. Other than that, it will not work. So if I'm Visual Studio Code, that is how you also go about to create your file. But I'll switch to PyCharm. And then inside PyCharm, I will create my day 2 file also. I currently have only the folder. So new, and then Python file. Let me call it the same name, day 2. But in PyCharm, as I said, you don't have to explicitly put the py there. It will put it there for you. But if you put it there too, it will take it as you have made it. Okay. So we are looking at variables, and I told you that it's like a value, a container that will hold a value. So in the case of the favorite color, I can easily say favorite color, and that should be equal to blue. If you look at my code carefully, you see that I did not put, like we type in regular English, I did not put a space between the favorite and the color. There are what we call naming conventions, which are just to say that there are some rules that we follow when we want to name our variables. Okay, Joseph is saying there are some delays with today's stream also. Please, if you are also experiencing the same thing, let me know, and then let me see if I have to refresh my network. But if it is cool at your end too, you can let me know so that that will mean that Joseph's network is the one having the problem. Okay, it is okay now. Thank you, Joseph. So if I want to, if the variable name consists of more than one word, like in our case, favorite color, Python will not agree that I put spaces in between them like I've done. You can see immediately that we have a red underline there telling us that something is very wrong. And if we try to right click and run this code, we will get an error that tells us invalid syntax. This invalid syntax means that there's a way we have typed our code that is not right. So if you take it like a language, like a regular language, let's say English, you have rules that guides the grammar of the language. So you can't just be putting words together anyhow. You have to follow a specific pattern. And if you want to even construct sentences before they can make meaning, you have to follow some rules of grammar and all that. So programming languages also have their rules that you have to follow to make your code meaningful, like we follow language rules to make sentences meaningful. And one of the rules is that we shouldn't put spaces in here like this. So you can replace it with an underscore. That is one naming convention. You can also capitalize the second word of the phrase, the sentence, or whatever it is that you are typing. This is called, I think this is called a camel case. There are other naming conventions also, but as a Python developer, you are not, even though you are not restricted to this style, but this is the style that Python developers worldwide have agreed that we use. So if you are coding in Python, then you may want to get that particular style. You saw also that there was another underline here, which is not red. That means that it's not really harmful. When I place my cursor on it, you see that Python gives me some pop-up here. It says PEP8. whatever code that one is expecting a new line at the end of a file. Python has, let me take it from this side. Python, the creators of the language, or those who maintain it now, because one person created it, they have a style that they prescribe that you write your code in. So they usually say that always leave one empty line at the end of your code. I think this one applies to almost many languages. So leave one line at the end of your code. And that is just something that they want you to do. It's not compulsory. If you delete it, it will not do anything, but I usually like to do that. So that particular styling has been inserted into PyCharm, so it's able to analyze your code and tell you that, hey, you are violating a PEP style. So once you put your cursor on it like this, on that underline, and then you click reformat the file, it will automatically do the reformatting for you. I'm not sure about Visual Studio Code, but it happens in Python. There are formatters in Visual Studio Code, but you have to download them, I think, yourself. But PyCharm comes with it automatically. So in this case, our favorite color is blue. But if you want to also declare a value like maybe salary, which is a numeric value, I can just put it something like this. And in this case also, 1500 becomes the value of the variable salary. So usually if I say a variable, all that I'm saying is that you have something to the left, which is your variable name, and you have something to the right, which is the value of the variable. And one thing that I should also emphasize here is that when you are writing code, some people, they don't want others to be able to read their code. And so they try to give variable names that are very difficult to read. One disadvantage of that one is that later you will come back and then you realize that you cannot even read your own code. So somebody will intentionally put FC for the favorite color, and then so that I will not be able to see that the favorite color, this means a favorite color. It is not a good practice at all as a programmer. In fact, Python doesn't mind whatever name we give here. You can just put F here or C for color. It doesn't mind whatever name we give here. It can work with it, but try as much as possible to use variable names that will make your code readable. Okay, there are no questions, so I can move from variable to another thing. The next item on the line should be data types. So when we look at programming as a problem-solving discipline, usually if you want to solve any particular problem, you gather some information or some data you think is necessary or will help you solve the problem, or even maybe get to a very good point in the solution. And that is the same with programming languages also, because whatever it is that we are doing with code, the end is to solve a particular problem, whether simple or complex. And so we also need some data or a particular set of information that we can now give to our code, use it, and then use logic together with logic and whatever thing we have to produce in our code to bring out something meaningful. And in programming, that is also called data types. So let me bring up the slide and then we take it from there. So Python data types, or the types of data, the forms, should I say so? I don't want to be sounding so technical. So the types of data, or the types of the data that we can take inside Python. The first one is an integer. Integer represents all whole numbers, positives, negatives, and then zero. And so if you want to store anything like the salary that I stored, 1500, is an integer. If we check what we call the type of the variable, Python will tell us that the salary is an integer. there is another type that we use to represent numbers called the float. That is used for floating point numbers, which is also another technical name for decimal numbers or numbers which have decimal points. So a very popular number like the pi, the value of pi, which is 3.142 to three decimal places, because there is a point or a decimal point, we will say that 3.142, even though it is a number, it is not an integer, it is a float. Even if the number that follows the decimal point is zero, it is still a float. 1.00 is still a float and not an integer. There is also what we call string, which is just a sequence of characters. I will not say words. I will explain why I am saying a sequence of characters and not just saying words. Because every character in the character space can actually be converted or be used or represented as a string. And there is also the last one that we talk about, which is called a Boolean. A Boolean takes only two values, and it is either true or false. So we use that one to represent things like if you want to represent the state of a light bulb, it is either on or off, so that can be true or false. And that is how it goes. So let us get into code and see how all of these things come into play. Also inside PyCharm, I'll delete this line, or maybe I should do this version in VS Code. Okay, I don't think it is good for me to be switching editors just for demonstration purposes. So I think I'll place a poll on the WhatsApp platform so that you will choose which editor I should use for this project for the 21 days, whether I should stick to PyCharm or VS Code, so that I don't end up switching between editors. So I will come down a few lines. You just press the return or enter key, you will come down to the next line. And this here, let's start from integers because that was the first. I'll bring in salary again, which is still 1500. So this is a string. Don't worry about auto-completing. It's a function of the Python professional. How do I know that this is an integer? Well, Python already knows. And if I put my cursor on the salary variable name, you will see that Python is still giving me some small pop-up. First is where the file, the variable is located. So it's inside the day2 file over here. And then it's telling me that salary is an int, which is the short form for integer. And then the value is 1500. So even though we type it simply like this at the top here, inside the computer's memory, it is seeing it as salary integer, which is 1500. And Python does that for us when we type our code. We don't have to explicitly state the type. For other languages, you will have to state the type. So if this was to be a language like, say, that, I would have to say that salary, or I'll even bring the type before. I will just say that, say, integer or int salary equal to 1500. Other programming languages will let you do something like this, where the type comes before the name of the variable and then the value. But Python doesn't do it that way. So if you see other languages like that, don't just get confused. Python is trying to simplify things for you here. So how do I check whether this is an integer? Remember our friend, the print function that I told you is the standard output manager for Python. So that whatever we want to see, we can give it to the print statement and it will show it for us. Okay, Kent is saying good day from the Caribbean. I really appreciate your presence. I hope you have a lovely session. So when I do it this way, I'll right click and run. And then I see 1500 here. My software I used to draw on the screen is not responding. I don't know why. A minute, please. Let me see if I can bring it up. Yeah, it's active now. Okay. I see the value of 1500, which is what we expected. But if we want to check the type, then we can also call another function. For now, just take functions at some like something that performs a particular task. When we get to function, I'll really explain it into detail. But for now, if I say function, just take it like a special keyword or a special word in Python that performs a particular task. So like the print function, you see that when I type the print function, I open and close brackets. I told you that usually functions will have this open and close brackets, which means that we can give them some value. You can look at it like open arms. So we can give it anything to work with. And in this case, the print statement works with anything that we put inside. And the work that it does with what it puts inside is that it shows it here in our terminal. So there's also another function called type. And then I have to bring open and close bracket for it. So this first one is for this print statement. The last one closes the print statement. But the type now finds itself inside print and has its own set of opening and closing brackets. So inside here, I can put salary. So all that this code is doing is that is just let's like evaluate it from the inside out, which is what Python will do, by the way. So it will first check, pass this salary to the function called type, whose purpose is or whose function is to give us the type of what we have given it. So it will look through our code, look for the value, and from the value get us the type. And then it will pass that particular type that it has gotten, whatever thing it got when it did the search, to this print statement, and print will give us the value of what the particular type was. So if I right click again and I run it, I see something a little bit cryptic, but I can see here that the class, which is to say that the type also, you can take it that way. We have not gotten to classes. When we get there, I will explain also. But just replace this class with type in your mind as int, which is the short form for an integer. So if we also just go ahead and put a dot after 1, making it 1.500 and not 1500, and run the code again, you see that the class that came was float, which I told you is the short for floating point numbers. So that means that our number has a decimal point in it. Okay. I think I can leave salary to be the same, and I'll declare one variable for pi, which is 3.142, so that I can print that for salary, and I can print one also for pi. Now, when I run, I see two, one for the salary and one for the pi. Python runs from top to bottom, so the first one we see corresponds to the first one, and the second corresponds to the second one. Okay. So another variable that I said is, okay, Python is trying to calculate something for me here, but that's not what I'm interested in. So I can declare another one for color, which will be blue. This is what we call a string. Anything in Python, for now, let's take it that way. That is enclosed between. So if you see an opening quote and an ending quote, whatever is in between is a string. Take it that way for now. Well, that is mostly or 99% the case. It is a string. And that is what I said is a sequence of characters. If I change this blue to C blue, inside a string, I can leave spaces and I will not be penalized. This is not a variable name, so I can leave spaces like I've done with the C blue, and then Python or Python will still be happy with me. You can see there is no underline here. So if I forget these two, which we already know about, and print the type of color, we will see that is str. The str is just the short form for a string, which is a sequence of characters. And the reason I'm using the term sequence of characters and not just words is that if I put 12 in here and run it again, I still see str, which is a string. But if you know that this is a number, in fact, if I first of all print the value before I print the type, I know color is not, 12 is not a color, but forgive me. When I run it, I still see 12 here. And then I see the class of string. Or let me put pi here rather. Let me call it pi underscore string. So here will be pi. I'll press print pi. And I'll also print pi string before I'll print the type of pi string. I just hope this is not confusing. I'm just declaring variables here and then checking their types. So when I run it now, Python runs from top to bottom. So the first one you see here, the first 3.142 here is this pi, line 5, which corresponds to the number pi. The second 3.142 you see here is the pi string, which corresponds to line 3, which the type that we are printing the type of line 3 in line 7, and then we get a class of string. But if I modify this code a bit, remove the string from here, and then run day2 again, I now see that that class is a float because it is now making reference to line 2 instead of line 3. In the terminal, they look exactly the same, but you can see from the data types that the types are not the same. That is why I said that it's a sequence of characters, not just words, because I can add anything here. 3.14 to is the value of pi to 3 decimal places. This one still remains, it looks like a sentence, but it still remains a string, and it's printed here also. So I believe I've not confused anyone with the string and the number issue. Okay, please, apart from Julius, does anyone have delays in the stream, the feed? Please let me know in the comments. I would greatly appreciate that. Okay, I believe that means that we are all good. Okay. So that is it about data types. Usually in the beginnings like this, it will not really make sense when I'm explaining these things, but George J Owusu, same by the same, do you imply that you also have delays? Okay, Revival is saying there are no delays. Okay, and McCarthy is saying that. Okay, so for Julius and then George, please refresh your page or your phones, like the website, wherever you are viewing the stream from, and it will be resolved for you because McCarthy is saying he had the same issue and then it was solved after he refreshed the page. Thank you. So we are almost done with data types. The last one is a Boolean. So I don't really know what to give as a variable name, but I can say it's raining, just to ask a question whether it is raining. And then I'll set the value to true. Sorry, this is not JavaScript. It should be capital T. This, I would say, is a Boolean variable declaration, where it's raining is the variable name and true is the value. So if I print the type of it's raining, so I just print it's raining itself, it will print true, but let's print it anyway. Before I print the type of it's raining, I see the value which is true, and then the class which is bool, which is the short form for a boolean. You really understand these things when we start using them. For now, you just have to understand the concept that something like this is a string, something like this is a boolean, and all that. Okay, so let me see if there are any questions in the chats. It looks like there are no questions, so you can skip this part and then get to the next item for the day, which is how to take user input. For yesterday, today, or up till now, we have been declaring everything that you want to see in the terminal. So if I bring up the salary again, which was sorry, 1500. Now I can print it to the terminal and see the value of it here. But I'm only seeing this thing because I am the one developing. In fact, if I am to show you how these things are actually done, I'm doing something that I don't expect you to do. I'm just showing you doing that to explain what we are doing today. So this is where the day2 file is located on my computer, the file I'm currently working in. So this is how Python actually runs our file. It calls the Python and then gives it the file to run it. Like you saw the code runners function the other day. So I have my terminal in here. I don't expect you to do this, and I'm just doing it for demonstration. So if I want to run my day2 file, which I can find out, this is it. If I say ls, which is the command to list all the files in the particular directory, I'll find it here. Once again, I don't expect you to be doing this with me. I'm just showing you something. I can now say Python and then the name of the file, which is day2.py. When I press enter, I'll see the 1500 also here, just like Python give it to me. I'll come back to this file to explain something. But you saw that in my terminal, I didn't have the privilege of seeing the code. I only saw the output as I'll see down here. So we are only privileged to see that the value is this because we are actually in the editor. But if a user is running our code this way, then the person will not see it. So what if you wanted to take the value of the salary from the user instead of we putting it in the code? There is another important function called inputs. And then usually inside any editor, when you put your cursor on any function like this, it will fetch what we call the documentation, which is just some um, text that the user or the person who created that particular function has given you to let you know what it does and how to use it. So we see here that it's input, forget the DEF, whatever it is for now. And then it takes in something, as I told you. And then this arrow is just to say that the output of inputs. Whenever you see the arrow here, it means it's telling you the output. So the output of input is a string. So that means that whatever input will give us, that particular thing is a string. Oh, where's my documentation? Okay, it's back. So it says that the input function reads a string from standard input. I told you that when we print, it's a standard output. So print is the standard output manager. And then, so you can think of it like the input is the standard input manager, which kind of acts like the opposite of the print statement. Instead of giving something to the output, it takes something from the output. So the prompt that we see here is a string. It's supposed to be a string. We can't put any other thing there to throw an error. So he said that if we give the prompt in there, the prompt is printed to the standard output, and so that the reader can read it, or the person using the file, the code can read it. And then for the rest, just don't bother yourself with it. All that I wanted you to know is that this thing returns a string and takes as input a particular prompt, which is optional. Because we know that it is optional, it says if given, so we can choose not to give it. But I will let you know in both cases, giving it and not giving it, which one is best. So I will leave my code like this, which is just to say that I have declared a variable called salary, but I'll not put it in code myself. I will take it from the user, and then whatever the user will give me, this input, which is the standard input manager, the opposite of the print statement, literally will give me the value that the user will type, and I will display the user's value onto the terminal. So I'll run my code. Don't forget that I told you also that if the program has finished running, whether successfully or unsuccessfully, it will tell you that by an exit code. If you have not seen an exit code here, this line here, process finished with exit code, whatever the number will be, that means that your code is still running, it has not finished running. And if you are using PyCharm, you also even see by a particular indicator, which I'll show you very soon, if your code is still running. So I'll run day 2, and you can see that I've not seen exit code. That means that I've not exited from my script. It is still running in memory. I can see from the top here also in PyCharm, if I zoom in, there is rerun. If I say rerun, that means the thing is already running. So I want to run it again. And there is stop. We can only stop something that is running. So that means that our code is running, but we don't really see anything here. When I click inside the terminal, I see that the cursor is blinking. And wherever you see a blinking cursor is an indication that the place is ready. You can type some text there. So let me just type in 1500. And now you can see that I can type inside my terminal. So use the input statement, we can actually type in the terminal. And when I am done with whatever I want to give to the input function, I'll press return or enter on my keyboard, and then the rest of the code will continue executing. So we can see 2 of the same value here. The one that Python has given a blue color is what we typed or what I typed. And then this 1500 is coming from our code at line 3. I just hope that I've not confused anyone with this. And now we can see the exit code 00. When I click here, like after the exit code 00 line, after this line, there's also still a blinking cursor here, but I can hit my keyboard many times as I like. I will not see anything in my terminal because the only, should I say, legal or authorized way we can type from the terminal is to use the input function. So you can try that at your site too and see how it goes. But if our code is only to work this way, it wouldn't really be the best because I knew that I'm supposed to type in salary. So I had a foreknowledge of what to type here. And so that is why I was able to type it. So in the case of our anonymous user, he will run the file again and will not see anything here. I don't know what I'm supposed to type here, but being a little biased, knowing what is it, I will just type my 1500 again. And then I see 1500 printed here. It doesn't really make sense, to be very honest. Because this is a terminal, I can type again, and this one should be commands, but usually in Python, you cannot do that. So that is where the prompt comes in handy. It says the prompt string, if given, is printed to the standard output. So let's give it and see what to do with it. So in this case, our prompt string, remember the string is actually the string in Python that we have talked about. So it should be enclosed in quotes. So the string will say enter your salary. And I'll try to let me just leave it that way. Let me just put space after it because if I don't put this intentional space here, let me leave the space so that I show you exactly why I'm putting the space. So now if I run my file like this, instead of the nothing that was there in the first place, I can now see that enter your salary, which is a little bit descriptive. So I can now click here and enter my salary. But because I didn't give the space, if I hit my space bar, it will not work here. This one is not like the text editing software that we use. It will not work here. Things are a little bit strict. What you see is what you get, and nothing less, nothing more. So I can still type it this way, press return or enter, and it will still work. Or if I want to make it a little nicer, I can put anything I want here. People usually put this symbol here, then leave a space. But I usually put a colon and leave a space so that it will style it a bit for me. So in this case, when I run it, I will see enter your salary and then my colon with a space, and then I can type my value inside there, and that will work also. So this is how we take input from the user. When I do it this way, it becomes readable to the anonymous user. So if I come back to our anonymous user here, let me clear this screen and then repeat the command again. Now, when our user runs the file using the very technical way, the person will see enter your salary. So, okay, now I know that I have to enter my salary, which is 1500, and then I press enter, and that will also work. Okay. There are no comments. That means this session has also soaked in well, and that is good to know. Always you have been pretty. Maybe you are guessing whether we can give some description to the printed statement also, because it looks like it's just printing the value. But what is this value? It's just 1500. But excuse me, if I can say something like the salary is 1500, I think that would be nice. The print statement, yes, can do that for us. So whatever we want to now use to decorate or give more meaning to our output can be a string. And you see that Python is suggesting it for me, this professional version. It's one of the features I like, to be very honest. because it really speeds up your development process. But I'll not use it in this camp. So I will just type it in myself. Say your salary is, and then there are many ways to do this. You see that it's suggesting here that I put a colon, so it is gone. That is good. So your salary is, and then I can come out of the quote because what I'm about to put inside is not it's not part of this string. It's not part of the quote. I'm going to put salary here, so I can put salary here like this. The reason I didn't put it inside it, if I put it in like this and run, it will just print your salary is salary, no matter what I type. So if I put, say, 2,000, it tells me your salary is salary. Even though this name here is the same as this here. But because this is enclosed inside our string, which is defined by this opening and closing quotes, it will never refer to the variable. It will always be part of this whole string and be seen as a regular character in the string. So I can rather bring it out and separate it with a comma. So I separate what I want to print, or the value here, the variable here, from what I'm using to decorate it or give more meaning to it. And you saw from this earlier experience here with the inputs that if I want a space, I intentionally have to put it there. So if I delete this space like this, it will not use this space. This space is just to make our code readable and beautiful. In fact, PyCharm will start yelling at me very soon. You can see that it did here. When I put my cursor on it, it says missing white space after a comma. So according to the PEP 8 style for Python code, I have to put a white space, which is just an ordinary space after every comma. So that is what I just did. That doesn't mean that this space will come in the terminal. In fact, if I delete it and prove stubborn and I run it, I enter my salary to be 2,000, is that it still gave me the space there. That space is not after the is. There's no space after is between the quote and the comma, and between the comma and the salary, but the space still came. That is to tell you that this is not the space that will render here. So what Python does is that it knows automatically that whenever you bring something that will give meaning to what you're about to print, and then a comma, it knows that whatever is following here will also be added to this particular sentence or decoration, should I say so. So it intelligently puts a space afterwards. So we don't have to do that. And that is really a cool feature, I must say. So now we can print our salary in a more friendly way. So if we come to our anonymous user here, and then repeat the command to run the file, when I type my salary here, now I get something that is more user friendly. Okay. So let me monitor the comments. Okay. It's empty. That means that we are still, we all understand what is going on, which is great. The last on our list is comments. When we say comments in Python, we can just say that it's just a note to you, the developer, or those who use your code. Usually, code bases are large. As you advance in this programming or developer journey, you write very, very huge code bases or code bases with very long lines of code. I think it was last year, my group and we worked on a software. When we finished everything, was it around 25 or 26,000 lines of code separated into not less than, should I say, 20 or 30 Python files all working to bring up to make the application work. So you could see that it's not just one line, one file, multiple files with many lines of code. In that case, we are many working on the code. So you have to find a way of communicating to the other party that, okay, this particular function, this is what it is doing. Or if I delete a line, I can say that, okay, this line I deleted it because of this, that, or I added this line because of this, and that. And so that is what we can use comments for. One of the things we can use comments for, actually, and not the only thing. So how do we declare comments in our Python code? You just precede it with this symbol. It is pound or hash, whatever the name is, but I think it's the pound symbol. Some call it that way. Whichever way you call it, just know that it's this symbol. I think I've zoomed in enough for you to see. So that is the symbol. Anything that comes after that symbol, Python will not look at it as code. So if I take it rather from this place and bring it here, and then I say print, sorry, and then what we did yesterday, I would just say hello. We all know that this line 3, is supposed to print hello. So if everything works fine, I'm expecting to see hello before your salary is whatever I type in. Okay, God's way. Sorry about that. And I really wish you a speedy recovery. So I'll go ahead and run the file, expecting to see hello before the salary that I'll put in. So 2,000. But it looks like something is not happening right, because my exit code is here, which should tell me that the application is done running. But I don't see my hello here. And that is because it is a valid Python code, but because it is preceded by this symbol, Python ignores that line. It looks at it like what you call a comment. So it thinks that we are just giving some notes to ourselves. And so it skips this line whenever it is writing the code. It will not run it, no matter how valid the statement after it is. So one very useful way to use this is that I can say here, so giving a note to myself or the person who will later read my code, I can say, taking users salary, or asking users salary, any proper word or description you think you can give. And then here I can say, show the given salary. So that can be one of the useful cases for this, our file here. So anybody who takes this code to read knows that, oh, okay, in the next line, we want to take the salary from the user, which is being done by inputs. And then after that, we are showing the salary that the user has given. So that is it with comments. After inside comments too, we can use spaces like you've seen me do. We will not get an error because whatever is after this is not actually treated as code. Okay, so if I run this thing now, our comments will not show, only the ones that are valid code will show. So if I give in my value again, it still say that it's 2,000. And this is there. We don't have any underline, shows that PyCharm or Python is happy with our code that is syntactically valid. It follows all rules, even though we have things that without this symbol here, you will immediately get an error. Without the symbol, we immediately get an error because And if you put our cursor on it, it will tell us that it's an unresolved reference. It doesn't even know what we are trying to refer to. But once the symbol is there, it goes away, knowing that it is a comment. We are just giving notes to ourselves or someone who will later read our code. I also hope that this comments part have been explained well. This is not the comment that we are using to communicate in the live stream. It's just the same word in another sense, meaning another thing. Okay, so as usual, I'll wait for like 2 minutes or 1 minute and see if there are any questions that I have to address live. If there are no questions like that, then we can bring the stream to an end. Okay, looks like there is no question at the moment. So that will be the end of today's stream. Tomorrow is not part of our live sessions. It's the weekend is a Saturday, and Saturdays and Sundays are not part. So our day 3 will be on Monday, which should be, I think, for 5th or so. So if there are any other concerns, you can put them on the page and then we can address it there. Augustine, you are saying your output doesn't show. I don't really get you by your output doesn't show. Can you give further explanation to that? Oh, better still, you can, this place you cannot show pictures, but on the WhatsApp platform you can show pictures. And so you can put it on that on the page and you'll be helped out. Okay, so that will be all for today. Thank you once again for your time. Until another time, I encourage you to keep practicing. I will put the assignments for this week. I will try and create maybe a Google Classroom where we put the assignments there for you to practice what you have done so far. And so keep an eye on the page for that link to the class, and then make sure you submit the assignment on time. It will count, be a factor for the certificate issuing. So make sure you do the assignment and submit it on time. Thank you all.